Shafa did that video. Was fear, freedom, safety, something like that. And this is my second go around at this. The first one, I probably said some things that might not make the YouTube overlords overly happy. When you did that video, there was a lot of different feelings in it. Um, my initial, my initial, my initial thought was, like that. That's a really tough situation for you and your son to go through. Um, I mean, I don't. I kind of came. Not that that stuff never happened before, but I came of age after a lot of, we'll say, the over publization. Sure, we'll call that a word. Of all this bullshit and fear porn through the news and that. And probably there's, like when I was in school, right? You always had some shitty old leftover hippie teacher, right? That probably spread a bit of that fear too. Um, the it's There's a few different aspects to that. Number one is this whole blaming of the tool and not the individual, and it prevents us from dealing with the problem. You know, um, it's not the it's not that's not the tool's fault. The other, when we look at this, we need to look at the person that's involved in this. And there's a few different aspects to that. I would say number one is mental health. Um, I think we need to ask why people are doing the things that they're doing. Not everybody, but these people who cause pain and misery. Some, not all, some are just no good from the boots up. Um, but there are some that, I don't know, they seem to be suffering in some sort of way. And it's weird if you're, if you're, pretty much anywhere in the world, mental health resources are sadly lacking. If you're if you're some bum on welfare, or you're somebody who's already caused pain and misery, there seems to be resources for that. But rather than any prevention, we'd rather have cure. So because most circumstances, unless you're, like I said, unless you're some leech on society, mental health resources either aren't there, and if they're there, they're not cost effective. So that's my little rant on that. The other part is that we don't deal with problems anymore. You know, um, Historically, if people cause pain and misery, somebody was dealing with it. Um, Rather, it was the public doing what they needed to do, um, or it was the peace officers, um, dealing with it. But I mean, nowadays we don't have peace officers. We call them law enforcement, and realistically, they're really more. It's less about public safety and more about revenue collection. If the police were really concerned about public safety, well, rather than dealing with you know um, you know somebody who who might blow over the limit or distracted driving or whatever, who, you know, pays their taxes and is a productive member of society, they'll go after that person because there's not any resistance there and there's money to be made. If it was about public safety, well then the gang members, the criminals, they would deal with them, instead of letting them run rampant. You know, I think it's hilarious, but I could get to a whole thing on that. But historically, somebody dealt with it, and now it doesn't. And the reason being is that those particular revenue agents I was speaking of, they complain about being understaffed, and there doesn't seem to be enough of them to catch the problem, but there is enough of them to catch the people who deal with the problem. So that is another thing. This whole fear thing as well. I guess people are naturally predisposed to look at the worst case scenario, and I'm no different. Even in my personal life, there's times where I feel that I lack the courage to do the things that I need to do. However, this whole business, you gave the hypothetical situation of somebody threatening to poison water or something like that, and the funny part is that if a threat like that went out, there'd probably be a bunch of people who would die from thirst because they're too scared to drink the water that somebody speculated might be poisoned, or not be smart enough to, I don't know, use a filter or whatever, we're in a really weird place. When you look at the whole safety side of things, I think that there's a happy medium. The reality of it is nobody else can be responsible for your safety. You have to be. I think that's pretty realistic. And whatever you think you need to do for your own safety is your own business, right? I mean, whether that's, being a concealed carry holder or just being cognizant of the areas that you travel, or some combination of the two, right? If you live in an area where there's frequent power outages, having a generator is a good idea. If it's just like, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a fearful thing. It's just survival, right? Where the problem comes in is when you go and you say to somebody else, you're responsible for my survival, and I'll give you money for that, but I won't hold you accountable, then you get to a real mess. You have to take chances. You have to live the life you want to live. You have to drop a vice, gain a skill, and you do have to be responsible for your own safety and security, whatever that might look like. If you're going out fishing on a sunny day and you don't wear a long sleeve shirt and a hat, well, you're gonna get burnt. That's nobody else's, that's nobody else's responsibility, right? I think that there has to be some sort of a happy medium on this stuff, and people have to realize that they have to do something for themselves. So, with that being said, I'll cut that off there. This is probably the better one to post, because the first one would surely have got me put on a watch list. Anyway, everyone, take care.